All right, so now we are recording. So I am Ashley Hopkins, as hopefully you know. Can you tell us your name and the neighborhood that you currently live in?
My name is Rex McBride. I live in Fort Wright, Kentucky.
All right, so we have about 10 questions. We'll start talking first about you and your childhood, and then we'll talk a little bit about your parents and your family, and then anything else additional that you want to add, okay?
Sounds good.
So first of all, when and where were you born?
I was born February 22nd of 1985 just outside of Gallipolis, Ohio.
All right, and so where did you grow up?
In a very small area called Eno, just close to Bidwell. It would have been a Bidwell mailing address.
All right. So what was it like growing up in Eno?
Very rural, very quiet. I go back now and catch myself, especially at night when I go outside, like eerily quiet and dark, like we don't see in this area. I was very much a country kid. Grew up running in the woods, riding on four-wheelers. Ended up working on a big farm operation, probably mid-high school on until I left town. Had a single working parent, not single working, had only one, there was a one income family. My dad owned a construction business. Mom was a stay-at-home mother, and I feel like it was a pretty good life. Yeah, I mean, country kid.
Yeah.
This is funny talking to you and some of this because it's like, you know, all
I
this,
know.
but
I'm sitting here thinking about the mudslide house in the woods when it would rain and we would go slide down the ridge.
Oh yeah.
In the mud.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And that big bald across the street behind the church, running up that hill and playing in that big field when we were kids too.
Yeah.
Those are some. I actually wrote a poem about that hill one time.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I'll never forget wrecking my bicycle down that hill.
And yeah, we're allowed to be conversational. In fact, that's appreciated in this interview too. That's kind of part of the history of it. So they expect us to be people that we know. It just adds layers to the interview. So
yeah.
Started talking about this a little bit, but what were some of your favorite things to do growing up?
Definitely I was outside any opportunity I got. We didn't own much land, just what the plot the house was on, but behind the house was about 500 acres total of woods, and just constantly building forts and running the woods, kind of a till dusk, you know, out roaming. My family always had four-wheelers, so we were always out riding through the woods and the strip mines, and you know, I pretty much got anywhere I wanted to go prior to getting my driver's license on a four-wheeler. I had a couple of close friends. Small area like that, there weren't a whole lot of, you know, there wasn't a run down the street and see if someone, you know, buddy was home, but I feel like it was a pretty close-knit community. My parents always tended to be kind of the hosts for get-togethers and stuff, and pretty much every weekend it was the guys drinking beer and throwing horseshoes, and card nights where y'all would come over and all that kind of stuff.
And the famous chili cookout every year.
Chili party. Yeah.
That was a big one. Do you remember when we shot that tomato out of that potato gun and rained tomato on everybody?
Yes, had it sitting on the top of the potato gun. My gosh. Did a lot of stuff that probably wasn't the most safe or legal.
We thought it was fun though.
Yeah.
All right, so next question, we're going to shift a little bit and talk about family. Where are your parents' families from?
My father was raised until he was 14 or 15 in Bidwell, and then they made a very sudden move to Tallahassee, Florida. My mother was a military kid. Her dad was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, so they moved around a lot. Florida, Georgia, I think maybe Louisiana or Mississippi for a while. And met my dad living in Alabama.
Okay. Do you know where your dad's family was from before, like, before Bidwell?
I know they have a lot of family there. I do recall both of my great grandmothers had homes in Bidwell. Do you remember? It wasn't far from.
You could see it from my grandma's front porch.
From your grandma's, yeah. The greenhouse was
on the corner of the alley, and
yep.
What was that, Vale, maybe?
Maybe I could drive through there and know, but couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I can't remember which street it was, but yeah, you can still see the spot from my grandma's front porch.
Yep. And then Dad actually grew up. Do you know where Ray grew up? Ray Sean Allen?
Mm-hmm.
His grandmother's house, that was where Dad lived until they moved to Florida.
So right in the middle of Bidwell.
Yeah. And at that time, I think he said it was even, I know it's only like a 2-bedroom house, and like all the boys, there were 4 of them. They were all bunked in one room.
Yeah.
Pretty old school.
Yeah, tight quarters.
Country, yeah.
So obviously you have been there and you've tell us a little bit about what Bidwell is like.
Oh gosh, I don't even know anymore. Bidwell itself.
Or when you were there, yeah.
I never spent much time in Bidwell until maybe just after high school when Ray Sean and I got close. He was really my only friend that was there much. I recall going over to the one grandmother's house and playing a little bit. It was really about the most like neighborhood like place in the area that I ever spent any time. Mm-hmm. There was always, as kids walking up and down the streets. There was that one little convenience store I remember walking to and getting candy and stuff. Wick Lines, yeah.
Penny candies, yeah.
Yep.
That building is still there. I drove by it recently, but of course, it's for decades now, I'm sure. It's
kind of sad looking at it now. Looking at Bidwell.
It's
kind of in decline.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So what stories you remember from your parents or your grandparents about when they were growing up there?
I remember Dad was good friends with Carl DeWitt, who remember Miss DeWitt from one of our elementary school teachers, her husband, and a couple of the Stumbos, some of Reese's dad and uncles. I do recall them talking about them running around a lot, and I believe somewhere right around the corner from the post office, maybe even so the DeWitts lived right around the corner from there. Mm-hmm. And I remember him talking about, I don't even know where the train used to stop, but the tracks that go through Bidwell right there. I vaguely remember them talking about hanging out around the train stop and, I don't know, messing around with the trains or something. I think he has some fond memories, but I think it was pretty traumatic when he ended up getting uprooted and heading south from there. Mm-hmm. There was some alcoholism concerns with his dad and some issues that they, like one morning it was, hey, pack what you can in the car and let's go, and left grandfather. So I don't have a whole lot of stories of memories and stuff from him.
Yeah. Do you remember anything from your grandparents?
My grandmother, she never moved back north from down there, and having a good bit of distance, when I was young, my dad's mother was in South Georgia or North Carolina. And I mean, it was like every couple years we would see them. So I don't have a whole lot of personal history with them even.
Yeah, yeah. Do you or your parents or any of your family use words like Appalachian or mountain people or anything similar to describe yourselves?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I usually joking around about certain things, if my twang picks up or something, like, yeah, that's the hillbilly coming out in me. Um, in jest, and never, consider it derogatory when I, say something like that about myself. But yeah, I'd say hillbilly, or I can get a little rednecky sometimes.
Yeah. How do you feel that your upbringing has helped make you who you are?
I feel a much different person than then. I often actually feel kind of out of place there at times anymore, politically and that kind of thing. But having now at this point lived kind of both more urban now and growing up so rural, a pretty broad, I think, kind of spectrum of thought and understanding. Definitely have always prided myself in work ethic, as far as, I don't know, 12 or 13, going to work with dad in the summers, saving up, buying my first car, all that stuff. And then working on the farm, there was a lot of pride in, calloused hands and doing something, labor intensive. Always felt good about that kind of thing. That's carried on. I think definitely some self-sufficiency that picked up. There's a lot of things you do for yourself, or figure out how to do or make something work. Don't be afraid to take it apart and figure out what's wrong, kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Those are probably some of the big ones.
Good. Thank you. So that takes us to actually the end of the interview. So thank you so much. This has been great, especially reminiscing a little bit about our together, and even Bidwell. Like, I know exactly where the train stop was, and Risa and I played on those same train tracks when we were kids. Yeah. And I could draw a map of Bidwell, and like Snumbos were here, McBrides are here, the Longhorns are here, and
yep.
So it is sad to see it in decline, but it's cool when I get to my uncle and still be at my mom and papa's house, and kind of those biking around the neighborhood kind of memories. But is there anything else that we've left out that you want to add to your interview?
I feel lucky to have been raised where I was. I'm happy with having that as kind of my history and background. At times, like I said, it can be difficult. I do feel like a little out of place sometimes now. And I think maybe that's a little bit, I've definitely, I know not to talk politics with my folks. They're very conservative. I'm very not. And that's become more and more, and even friends and stuff from back home. Like, I can't hardly looking at Facebook, seeing Trump and COVID deniers and all this stuff. I'm just like, ugh, that ain't me. I don't know that it ever was. It was just like kind of all I knew at that point. Mm-hmm. So having opportunity to get away from there and grow and develop in a way that is comfortable and something I'm happy with is good. So I feel this kind of like this push and pull a little bit was like, ugh, where I grew up, but also very fond as far as the place and the area itself. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of kind of internal dialogue, good and bad, about the place, but it's where I came from. I still love it.
Yep. Yeah. I'm very similar. Like you said, don't really align, don't really fit in all ways, but very special connection, especially to the land. Like I write poems about the river and the bald across the street from our house, and obviously those fond memories of childhood. And I think that we were really fortunate to learn some really important lessons that maybe wouldn't have been learned or would have been learned very differently in other spaces. So
Yeah. Yeah.
right, you are awesome. I can't wait to share this with
Thanks.
the coalition.